go back to that 1%, you can always find out exactly why a player got injured. There's an answer for that. If you go back in the data in his load, most often we could pick up why a player injured his hamstring, or why did he pull his calf, or why did he injure his knee. When we went back and looked in the data, we were like, oh shit, this is where it went wrong.
Welcome to Ballers Brew, the world's hottest sports podcast. I'm your host, Michael Bromfield, and I'm thrilled to have you join us for another exciting episode. At Ballers Brew, we dive deep into the latest topics and trends in the sporting industry, offering diverse perspectives and thought-provoking discussions. Whether you're a passionate fan, a professional athlete, or simply a sports enthusiast, this is the place to be. Join me as we explore everything from game-changing strategies to behind-the-scenes stories, all aimed at elevating your understanding of the world of sports. This is Ballers Brew. Some people rebuild others. Fewer rebuild themselves. Armand de Wet does both. He's a clinician with chalk on his hands, a performance mind with calluses. In a world of cookie-cutter rehab and cautious protocols, Armand walks a sharper line. One where science meets instinct, and recovery is a return not just to sport, but to self. From grey high grit to the high-performance trenches of Stellenbosch, his journey isn't just about perfecting movement, it's about questioning it, about going beyond safe, about testing methods on his own body before prescribing them to anyone else. He doesn't fit nearly into the system, and he doesn't try to. Because for Armand, being different isn't a rebellion, it's the requirement. In this episode, we explore what it means to rebuild from within, to be the outlier in the room, to carry both edge and empathy in a field that often rewards neither, and to keep chasing better in your body, your craft, and your conviction, even when the path isn't paved. This isn't just about return to play. It's about return to purpose. I'm honored to welcome Armand de Wet to Ballers Brew.
Thanks, Michael. I think, with a big intro like that, I don't know if I'm going to be able to back it up, but I will try my best. But yeah, thank you for having me and creating this space where, I think interesting questions can be answered, and obviously I like to be challenged with certain views and questions. It's not always that you get this space and time to give these things attention. So again, thank you very much.
Quite excited to be able to chat to you outside of the gym. And for those that are listening and who may be wondering, Armand de Wet is one of the coaches that I've been working with for, I would say, the past 2 years, and it's been an awesome journey working through different challenges, pushing myself and really trying to find an edge on performance both in and outside of the pool. And given the journey that we've been on through Ballers Brew, I thought he'd be a perfect individual to have on to just tap into some of the interesting and outlying factors within the world of performance. So perhaps for those that are listening, let's start here. Who is Armand de Wet? Beyond the protocols and the performance metrics, what shaped the edge you carry, and where does that fire come from?
Yes, I think when you first asked me this question, or in the example you gave me, I was like, yes, how will I answer something like this? Because this is a question that I think everyone asks themselves a lot. You don't necessarily always give an answer, because you just think about it and you have this ideas, but now you need to voice it. I think to touch on where I think most of my motivation and comes from, it definitely comes from a really big competition drive in me to really thrive and to be really good at what I'm doing. And yeah, I think to do that you really constantly need to think out of the box. But at the same time, there's certain baseline, what's the right word I'm looking for, boring things that will always stick and work. And I think how I try to deliver those, if it is in the form of exercise or is in the form of motivation with athletes that I work with, is to maybe package it a little bit more different, maybe put some more flavor to certain things. But the core base of these, let's call it rehab exercises for specific injury, it's sometimes just a very simple thing. It's really not something extravagant and new. I think it's just maybe the way I try to deliver it.
It's interesting to hear the, what's the right word, perhaps the logic behind the action, the thinking, right? And I say that because I've obviously been in the gym. I've had the opportunity to work with you and to really test myself as an athlete. I'm trying to think though. I'd like to dig a little bit deeper in terms of, if we say this is the background to your thinking and your practice, but for someone who may be listening and who's unfamiliar, right? And I say unfamiliar as to never heard of your name.
Mm.
From what I've read online, from Grey High to the Blue Bulls and now in Stellenbosch, your journey spans schools and systems and sporting cultures. What parts of these environments built you? And are there parts of that journey that you've had to unlearn or try and find your feet in the way in which you've moved forward?
Yeah, I think definitely one thing that stands out, I think there's a big performance marker in all these environments. Performance is a requirement to stand out and to be really good in what you do. Just to go by and do the basic things is just not going to cut it. You really need to thrive for greatness. And I think with all these different environments, from university to working at the Blue Bulls, it's you come there with not a lot of experience, but you put in this big pool of excellent, talented players and staff members and people with years of experience, and you need to be confident enough to know what you're doing, and again, not always trying to reinvent the wheel, but believing in yourself, striving for excellence. And I think that one of the most important things that I've found is to be open to learning, because that's where you can try new things and think out of the box and really go against the grain of what you've been taught and what you think works, but most often in the real world not necessarily work. And I think when you're open for learning with the performance effect, that you really want to make a difference, I think when those two things come together, that's when you feel confident enough to do and try real new things, and obviously get the effect of that on the people and the clients and the athletes you work on. So yeah, I think for my journey, I was really privileged enough to be part of these different chapters in my life, and from a really early age and a stage in my career, really learned from guys who've been in these big setups for many years, and they have made a lot of mistakes and they've learned, and I could learn from them earlier on, not to make necessarily the same mistakes.
I find it interesting in that last sentence you refer to learning from others that are around you. And before we started the recording, you briefly mentioned the importance of practical learning. So, for instance, you could have the opportunity to go on courses and learn maybe person to person, educational, but actually having that opportunity to be hands-on truly makes a difference. And I think within a profession, whether it could be in physiotherapy or in sports science or biokinetics, it's that's the best learning field. Would you agree?
No, definitely. I think I was privileged enough to be handed a massive opportunity to work with really big professional players from a very early stage. And again, it's I didn't have all the background and all the info. It's so there was like a little bit of fake it till you make it. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. As long as you're willing to learn and you have the thrive of excellence, if you get handed an opportunity like this, you should definitely take it. And obviously understand that there's going to be skills required. But if you're open to learning, then the rest is history. If
Mm.
I can put it, like that. I think you learn the most through this practical world where you see the real life thing. Because to see stuff in a book or to see a protocol that you need to apply on an athlete or on a specific injury, or you get this athlete, let's say, is a 100-meter sprinter and you need to make him faster, to apply exercises and protocols that you've learned, you see on Instagram or in a book or somewhere, it's going to fail you. It's not going to work. It's the way you deliver those stuff and what you've learned out of your experience working with all different athletes, getting that practical exercises where you've actually done this previously with the other athlete and you've seen the outcome.
I'd like to go back to the start, and I find it interesting. You obviously, through studies, will have a very large platform of institutional knowledge, and that will then help stepping into the world. And I find it funny and it's interesting. You say fake it till you make it, and I feel like that is it's a common thing when stepping into different working environments for the first time, because a lot of times you study something, but a lot of the work may, I wouldn't say it's irrelevant to the practicing itself, but it doesn't necessarily hit the nail 100% on the head. And
Exactly.
perhaps to pivot, from what I see with that, it requires a lot of confidence to be able to step into a performance environment where at the end of the day, success is determined by performance. So perhaps if we can zoom in on that thought and we're looking at the mentality of now putting principle into practice, how do you approach those athletes with what you know and also what you see, and also understanding that individuals are different? Uh, how do you then approach now that environment?
So one thing I've realized in this, let's say, 10, 12 years that I've been doing this, is that, again, when it comes to performance exercising, there's a lot of basic principles that has not changed. I think in looking in social media and at the current stage we're in, they try to deliver it in a different way and making it look extravagant. But back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, the Russians have been figured this stuff out long away, and I think they've refined it. And you can see a lot of these exercises and modalities and principles is still happening today. It's still It's still the same thing. It's just maybe with some AI or some heart rate or some new data collection feature added on. But the effect that you want to get out of an athlete, it's still the same. It's still the same. How can I? What's the right word I'm looking for? It's still the same methods that apply. Here and there's new things that they've realized. Okay, this is not working, or there's a better way. But it still stays the same. So when I'm coming from this place where you don't necessarily have enough practical experience, but you have all the knowledge that you've learned from university and some of the same stuff you applied on yourself and you've seen with other athletes that you've worked with on university. I think the biggest thing that when you approach a high performance athlete is to have the right attitude when you're delivering this thing, because I think, again, there's so many exercises in different ways, but if you have the right attitude and you can convince this athlete that this is exactly what he needs to excel in his sport or to get this edge he wants, that's a powerful tool, I think, if you can have the right attitude.
I find that very special, and I don't think it's an easy task, and it probably often goes unlooked in the sense that, from my experience, from what I've seen, and what's really been awesome through these interactions I've had over the various podcasts of Ballers Brew, it's understanding the interconnected network or system that is required in order for performance to come together, right? Perhaps to switch gears, I want to take it back to this morning. Okay, we're in the gym. I'm busy working out. And you tell me, yes, Mark, you keep overthinking it. I must just tell you what to do and you just do it. And understanding the psychological factor to performance is critical in the sense that, you're having to adjust and make adaptations. And sometimes your brain just doesn't trust your body. And I find it interesting because there's this switch between science and psychology. So science is the principles you're referring to, where it stays the same and perhaps there's some adaptation over time. But psychology really results in the connection you have with the individual and on the execution side. So I feel like there's this intersection of science and intuition. So at one part, you're rebuilding bodies. Yes, it's fairly evident work, but you're also rebuilding belief. So how do you approach return to play in a manner that you're also having to tap into that?
Yeah, I think this is a hard one, because each person is different. So especially one big difference is between team sports, individual sports. So let's say you have an injured team sport player, let's call it rugby or hockey. I think just the approach in those two are a little bit, or not a little bit, but there's a big difference in approach to believing that whatever injury this specific athlete has is where the guy in the team, it's not just always on him alone. There's so many other things that he also needs to think about, and there's also a lot of different checkpoints that it's not necessarily up to him to check those checkpoints. It's part of a team. I think maybe I'm going a little bit off the question here. I just think there's a big difference, because I've worked with a lot of rugby players back in their life, and to put them through for instance, put them through a return to play, I feel it's easier. It's easier to put a team player, and I've had some hockey players, I had some netball, a lot of netball players. I feel to put them through a return to play criteria and for them to believe that they are cleared and 100% functional to do their sport, I've just found it easier. So to look at the psychological side on that, I don't think I've necessarily figured it out yet. I think because that player is still injured, it's still a personal injury he has. It has nothing necessarily to do with the team or his teammates. So it's still something psychological that he needs to come over. But I've just found, and I don't know why, it's easier for those people to make the leap over and okay, I'm ready to go. Where on the other side, where you work with a lot of individual type of sports, swimmers, runners, cyclists, it takes a little bit longer. It takes a little bit more, I think, motivation from my side as a coach to make them believe in the structures and in the exercises and in the different protocols. Let's call it a return to play protocol that I've put them through, that they are in a place where they can comfortably return back to their sport or start doing different movements that they couldn't do. Yeah, and I think just to go exactly back to the right question you asked, because like I said, I went off the rail here a little bit, but
So good.
it's yeah, I think it's just again creating a very good structure of progression for an injured athlete. It's like if he can do X, Y, and Z, and you've reached the outcomes, you will be 100% able to do the next block of exercises or progression in rehab, and constantly taking that specific athlete through these different steps until you get to a point where a return to play criteria needs to be met. By the time when he do or participate in the return to play, basically the whole of the exercises and the rehab, he has done all those movements individually and fly and cleared it with flying colors. And by the time when he gets there, that he can, okay, now we're just doing everything on the same day, for instance, or on the same period of time. So and I think most often when athletes clear that, they're like, okay, this is much harder than what my sport, for instance, will be. So so that's definitely one thing that I've when I was at the Bulls, was to create a super elaborate return to play, and apparently they're still using it. So that's good that they are still using some of my methods. But it's to really create a system or a battery of tests that really do test whatever injury you had, is to really push it to the limits. And if you know that you can pass that you can put that player into any match, he should be 100% fine to handle the demands of the game.
What I'm taking away, if I may, it's my interpretation. I look at team sports, and it's also similar with individual sport, but there's a lot of camaraderie. There's this belief of, I really want to get back into the team because I need to play and I want to play and I need to support my brothers or sisters, because you're playing together as one, and you
Yeah.
want to be a part of that. And perhaps also, though, in a professional setup, there's this maybe perhaps there's contractual obligation. So maybe there's uh I don't say a need, but also like I need to get back because I also need to prove myself. And you know that you can't be out for so many weeks because there's it's a competition. You're fighting for your space on the team. You want to be on that starting 15 in rugby, for instance, where in individual sports it may be different. But then again, like you say, and just in terms of a progressive model, if you can tick the box, then you know that there's confidence in being able to move forward into the next thing, which then taps into the ability of, okay, I'm mentally ready. But again, coming back to the practice, so switching from science to psychology, it also takes, I would say, a big effort from your end to instill that motivation whilst going through those movements, ticking off the boxes to be like, look, you're nearly there. You've got it. We're just around the corner, and 2 weeks' time, we'll be back on the field slotting threes down the poles.
Yeah, I think it again, it comes down to practical experience, to been there before with the player, and believing in yourself firstly will make the player believe that he's exactly on the right track, and he's reaching his outcomes exactly how it's supposed to be. And again, just creating that structure. I think one thing is to show an athlete, this is what I want you to be able to do, and I've done this many times with this specific injury. When you can do this, you are 80% there before you can start to run, for instance, or to start to do jumping activities. And then you move on to the next blocks, and you create, again, a new structure that if you can follow the following steps and you can reach all these outcomes of this block, then you're 90% there from playing. And then again, constantly creating a good structure for that athlete to chase those small goals and outcomes, making them believe constantly, okay, this thing is improving, my pain is getting less, I'm jumping further, I'm running faster. Yeah, and then it's just a matter of putting them through exactly what they will get on the field or in the pool, for instance, or on the hockey field. And when you tick those boxes, again, there is me as an athlete, me as a ex-rugby player, which I also have had injuries. There's still that self-belief that you need to go through, and a personal what if I'm not ready question. But I think it makes it a whole lot easier if you've gone through a loads of different steps, and if you work with someone that really believes that this is the right way forward for you.
I can imagine in any case, and you've seen a vast amount of injuries, it's not ideal. You don't want to be the player on the field lying on the floor who's just torn an ACL or an MCL.
Yeah.
And in that moment, I can imagine, right, many see that injury as the end. And as you said, there's a lot of what if questions. There's a lot of what if you can't come back? What if this is the end of your career? What if I'm done? What am I going to do? How do I pivot from here? What if I do make it back? What if I come back stronger? What if I can still make that team? So in that regard, I guess it comes down to perspective. But what's interesting in terms of return to play, and again, it's just my opinion, is that it can also be treated as a new beginning. A new beginning, not to
Yeah.
mean that it's a whole new story that you're on. It's just, it's a point where there's change required. And if you're able to work through that, it's a new opportunity.
Yeah.
In that same
Yeah,
breath, yeah.
yeah, definitely. I think the right word there is that you get a massive opportunity. I think take any sport, the demands of sport and training, it really takes a lot of hours each week, each day out of your day to train and try to compete on the highest level. And sometimes when you do get injured, it's a small opportunity of time that you can get, obviously, to fix the specific injury you have. But there's so many other things that most often athletes don't have time for to do, to get stronger, to get maybe more flexible, to fix this niggle that he has had for many years, but he just don't have time because either constantly playing rugby or managing a small niggle here. So you get that opportunities where you can work with someone and really fix them. If I take an example with most of the ACL rugby players I've seen, most of them had an AC joint or a groin niggle or a lower back issue or an ankle issue. And that's the exact same time where we fix these small niggles and they don't get it again. While we fix obviously the main issue. So so massive opportunity to grow. I think that's also one thing that it's unfortunately injuries is part of sport, and everyone at a stage in their career is going to face something like this, and so there's a lot of mental learning and adaptation also happening with this. It's a small setback, but if you can again package it in the right way, and like you just said, and see it as a big opportunity to lift your game and to come back stronger, you can really use it as a powerful tool.
In that same breath, though, as you said, there's a lot of uncertainty attached with it. There's a lot of hardship because you don't actually know perhaps which direction it's going to take you, how long it might take you. And again, according to protocol and principle, you might have a general outline as to how long it might take. But in some cases, I mean, there are return to play scenarios maybe perhaps you've experienced where you're 3 months ahead of schedule. We're back on field, everyone's working. Having been hands-on and seeing I want to say the effect, but just how tough it truly is. What has that experience taught you about resilience and identity?
Yeah, I think again, it comes. It different people experience it differently, and one small injury for one person can be a massive injury for him compared to the other guy who maybe gets a much bigger injury and it's almost nothing for him. So again, it comes down to the right attitude. I think if you're positive, if you trust the process and the people and the community around you, that what they're giving you to do and helping you and guiding you is exactly the right thing for you at that moment. Those specific athletes, they just get back faster and stronger. I think one thing that I've realized is rehab and high performance has come a long way, especially rehab and the whole medical field, operations, the whole rehab protocol that follow this. You can see players are getting back much faster and stronger. I think back in the day, we were kind of the pioneers in a lot of these different protocols. A lot of the stuff we did was very new. For instance, you mentioned players will be back 3 months with the ACL earlier, and then all of a sudden you sit with this player who's reaching all your outcomes, but according to the doctor, the protocol, and everyone out there who have ever had an ACL, he's not allowed to play. And then I think there's where you almost try to overstep these boundaries and make players play or participate in exercises or team activities where they were not allowed to, for instance, and trusting your process that you put them through. And then that over the years, I think, made you resilient to certain question marks, certain what ifs, because you've seen this many times, and you can see in the whole medical field how, for instance, the approach to an ACL has completely changed in the last 5 years. And I think that gives you a lot of power and resilience to make big calls, because you've seen this and you've done this before secretly. But now you don't need to do it secretly anymore, because everyone is doing it. It's the new norm. It's the new protocol that players with again, let's call it an ACL, can come back early again if you reach all your outcomes and all the right steps and progressions has been followed.
I want to tap into what you said in terms of there's a lot of what ifs, question marks. Again, circling back to what we said earlier. But interestingly, again, it comes back to the science and the principle. Principles stay principles, right? There's a logical order in which progression is required in order for there to be satisfaction of the medical team to allow said player to go back and compete. Looking at medical interventions, and like you rightfully said, the advancement within technological aids over the past decade, perhaps 2 decades, has been mind-boggling, just to see what's available and how you can then assist athletes to perhaps speed up the process or make the process easier. And what you said, and when you closed, you said, though, there were things that you would believe would be right. They've ticked all the boxes, and in secret, you'd have to be like able to allow them to go back. But now with the advancements, you're able to do it as per the new norm. What is the cost and the playoff of not playing it safe in that regard? Whoa. Hey, Ballers Nation, quick break in the action. Thanks for tuning into Ballers Brew. If you dig our fresh take on sports, please rate, review, or share the podcast. It only takes a moment, but it makes a huge difference. Thanks for the support.
Yeah, I think first thing that you need to understand is I'm speaking not necessarily out of a private practice world here. I'm speaking maybe at a high performance level rugby team. So that's a business. The players is the products, and the obviously the products cost a lot of money, and the products need to deliver a service to the company, and so a lot of, I will almost put it, calculated risks needs to be taken to get the specific product on the field and playing. And like I mentioned before, there's a lot of boxes we want to tick, and sometimes not all of them are ticked. But on the business side of end, these boxes needs to be ticked. And that's where we normally then take these risks. Like, well, player A can do the following, and we've seen it many times that if he can do A, B, C, and D, he can play a 30-minute game. And over the first 5 times was risky, but the 6th, the 7th, the 8th, the 9th, the 10th time is getting less risky because it's working. And at that stage, it was the players and our relationship to the player. It was on rocky waters, because you need to make that player also believe they're not stupid. They also understand that there is certain loops and check marks that you need to go through before you go to the field. But they also understand that they're part of a business that needs to play. But as soon as you start creating this environment where this is working, then all of a sudden that's the new norm. That's the way you do it, because the previous 50 it worked for. And again, there is the what if. Out of that 50, there is someone that gets re-injured, but we really take it down to exactly the 1% that maybe went wrong, and if we are accountable for that 1%. And most often when it comes down to really that 1%, it is the demands of the sport. If someone runs on the side of your knee after you had an ACL cruciate ligament, there's also a chance that if you didn't have that injury, you could have torn your ACL. It's there is a percentage of when you go onto the field that something catastrophic like that can happen to anyone. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but
It does.
I think people looking from the outside always look that everything is super calculated and mathematical, worked out to a pin. And certain things are definitely in the beginning. There's really good structures and protocols and stuff we follow, but we also do not necessarily follow the protocols. It's a guideline, again, because everyone adapts and responds differently to each exercise and each operation, and each player yields at a different rate. So you cannot use a protocol as a 5-step protocol and bob's your uncle, there you go. And that also obviously creates a lot of thinking out of the box, how to make things better. If this exercise can work this well for this specific injury, why can't we do it this? And if a player can run 200 meters without any pain and discomfort, why cannot he run a 1K? So it's questions like that we ask, for instance. And then, yes, he can run a 1K. And then if he can run a 1K, why can't he start doing sprints? So it's taking these calculated risks in a way, but they're still risky.
Yeah.
But you're also getting this pressure from making the business tick. So it's not, again, if we go back to a private setup in a private world, for me to do that with, let's say you torn your ACL, for you to go and sprint on 4 months, and we did everything correctly and followed all the guidelines and checked all the boxes, what's the benefit I'm getting out of that? What's the benefit of you getting out of that? You're not necessarily needing to play for a big franchise. You're not getting paid a lot of money to play. So there's all these questions you also need to ask. And maybe waiting an extra month for you to do that is probably going to be the better option. So you get these two worlds that you need to, I think the questions you ask, it changes completely. Yeah. And the motivation behind them also changes completely. At the other end is looking back how privileged I was to be able to learn in an environment like this, because you really understand and see where you can push the human body in certain, again, injuries and high performance wise. So that have helped me a lot, getting people in my practice here and I'm rehabbing them and getting them back faster to their sport without being too risky, if I can put it. I don't know. I think you understand what I'm getting at now.
It's interesting. What I take away is, again, it comes back to the point of individualism, and also understanding based on the environment So the high performance team business model versus the individual. There's a lot of uncertainty in variables, as you say, posing the right questions to understand what is the best approach. And at the start, I mentioned the idea of going against the grain, but that experience comes from working in a high pressured environment where performance
Yeah,
is key, which has then allowed you to now be in a private practice setup with the experience to know what the true limit is, perhaps, as
yeah,
opposed to what most might accept to be
exactly. Yeah,
normal.
yeah.
Is that on the
No,
money?
that's 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 on the money exactly. And yeah, I don't know. And again, like I said, it's become normalized, and I think that's why it's still moving to a place where I think with all these new stem cell research and peptides and new medicine coming with helping with healing properties and recovering, players is going to come back even faster because that's what the sport and the money pushes it towards. You understand? If that's where the edge comes. If, for instance, we've with the whole syndesmosis injury that got a lot more prevalent after the GPSs was introduced into rugby. Knee injuries substantially went down because we could manage players' load. We could see the amount of load players are getting, and most of ACL injuries, for instance, and you will know, you probably have learned about it, is like 80 to 90% of them are non-contact. No one touched them. And that just comes down to load. It comes down to reaction time, how tired a player is, what was his total load in the last 3-4 weeks. And that's exactly where I want to touch base again on the previous point I made, is when you go back to that 1%, you can always find out exactly why a player got injured. There's an answer for that. If you go back in the data, in his load, most often we could pick up why a player injured his hamstring, or why did he pull his calf, or why did he injure his knee. When we went back and look in the data, we were like, oh shit, this is where it went wrong. And as soon as a medical setup and a medical team start to take responsibility for that, then it has a big influence on injury rate in players and in team sports. And then again, when someone is injured, the faster you can get him back, the better you support the business, because the better options the coaches has to choose out of players. And for instance, with the syndesmosis injuries that got a lot more prevalent because of new tackle rules. So players obviously started tackling a lot lower. So there was a lot more ankle injuries involved, and the again, that was a whole new protocol, or there was a protocol for that. It was, I think, 14 to 16 weeks, and over a period of a year, we got that down to 6 weeks. And again, a lot of questions was asked from people on our own medical team to doctors, to specialists, like, is this the right thing we are doing? Is this the long-term health of the player that we are looking after? And sometimes, again, in a setup like a performance setup, it's that's not necessarily always the number one on the list. Is to get the player back and functional and pain-free, and for him to play. What necessarily the long-term outcome is on that is, unfortunately, not a big priority, if I can put it that way.
Yeah.
And now again, looking back, that's the standard now. That's now the new protocol. If a player is not back within 6 to 8 weeks after a simple syndesmosis operation, something is, for instance, wrong. It's there's something was, yeah, there was some secondary problems that all right protocol wasn't, for instance, necessarily followed. So on the flip side as well, it also supports it supports the sport getting back faster.
To flip the coin, right? Whilst you've been speaking, I've been thinking, if I were an everyday fan, a
Yeah,
sports enthusiast, if you will, who is unfamiliar with the medical world. So I have a background in sports science. I understand a
yeah.
little bit of your world, and sometimes in gym we share and speak about these things. But let's say I have no idea or no understanding, because that just isn't my space. But I'm a huge sports
Mm.
enthusiast. If we're looking at injuries specifically, are there any myths or misunderstood protocols from the everyday person who may be looking on going, why can't said person be back sooner? Or why is it the way it is like this?
Yeah, I think as a fan, I don't know necessarily always how much info is necessarily let out from a medical team or a management team from a top tier rugby team or soccer team, or sometimes obviously you don't want to overshare certain information. There's a lot of batteries of tests we will put someone through to make this call if someone is not ready to play yet, or got a small injury or a knee or a shoulder for the weekend and he's not allowed to play. There's a person or a management group or a group of persons responsible making this decision, where it's not just the player saying, "Hey, my knee is sore, I don't want to play this weekend." It's not as simple as that. It's like, okay, what happened? When did it happen? What was your load? Finding exactly out why it happened is also sometimes very important. So obviously say it doesn't happen again, and then putting him through a battery of tests to see what the severity is of the injury. If it was something catastrophic where there was a big event or a big situation that happened, most often an MRI is done, and then you can see, okay, that is torn or this is injured, and most of the time there's healing time involved. If it's a small niggle, sometimes it's players are taken off or withheld from playing to make sure it doesn't get worse, so it's not like turn into a big catastrophic injury. So it's preventative. Sometimes, most often, when players are taken out of a game and then the next game they play again, it's a management of that player as a medical team and as a sports science team. Everyone comes together to make this decision that it probably won't be a good idea for him to play this weekend. So from a fan's perspective, it's that don't necessarily know all the nitty-gritty things that happen, but that's how a decision is made if someone is injured or has a small niggle. It's not always, obviously the doctor is the final call, but there's a lot of management that needs to support his decision or help him with his decision.
I think that's an insightful approach, just to understand for those that may not actually be familiar with the setup to medical decisions being made on said game day, or behind the scenes approaching a
Yeah,
game day, or even in-game decisions. I'm not sure if that is something as well that
yeah,
is
yeah.
done.
Oh, definitely, yeah. If a player gets injured on the field, let's say he rolled his ankle or he's injured his knee, you'll most often see the physiotherapist or the biokineticist running up and doing a few tests to see if there's any laxity or pain, or if the player is uncertain about how it is feeling. But yeah, so it's not just cowboy vibes. Because again, you're working with really talented, high performance athletes. Um, you want to make the best decision for the outcome.
Perhaps to switch it up a little bit, I find it interesting looking into the space you're in, and also now given the experience that you've had working within a professional setup in an institution, and now also being in a private practice space.
Mm.
When mentoring a young biokineticist or perhaps coaching an athlete, what
Yeah.
is one principle that you always come back to? Something that keeps you grounded in that process?
Mm. That's a good question. Yeah, I think I always like to put myself in someone else's shoes to understand how are they experiencing something. If I want to teach them something, or they're learning something, or coming into to work, for instance, it because sometimes you can say a lot of big words and mention a lot of different things, but it's their first time experiencing it, and there was a first time for me as well. So always keep that in mind. It's like it's their first time maybe hearing this or understanding if someone has this is how you diagnose the specific injury, or taking for instance your knee, how I explain it to you, to do what's physiological and exactly happening with your tendon, for instance. It's to trying to explain it for them as simple as possible, like I explained to you as well, because I think that's where you remember it the best, and almost seeing it kind of.
Mm,
Um, but to keep me grounded, definitely it's yeah, it's their first time, so they're gonna make a mistake, or they're not gonna remember, or they're not gonna understand it, and yeah, it's delivering it in a way that is simple, but yet making them understand exactly what you're trying to teach them.
that's special. And I think it takes a certain type of approach in terms of, again, understanding the mindset, but also I would say in private practice, maybe I don't know about being in an institution, but there's a level of empathy, right? You need to understand the people you're working with and
Yeah, definitely.
how
Yeah.
to connect.
Mm. Yeah, it's an intuition. I think you have to, and I think certain people, it's a good skill. I think actually South Africans are pretty good at it. That I've realized with working with some other coaches and other people around the world, is that we have a really good intuition and a feeling to certain things. Um, and I think someone who has that as a skill will be a very good doctor, or a very good physiotherapist, or biokineticist, for instance, even a coach, because it's really beyond the science most often of the time. It's yeah, it's not as simple always as just doing A, B, and C. There's a lot of more feeling and intuition that goes with something like that. It's almost like you've probably heard about it, where he has the feel for it, or he just understands it. And sometimes I've I've heard people saying that of me, but then you want to be scientific about it and think, yeah, but it's not. I just do this, and I just follow this rules. But then sometimes you catch yourself, and you like make something do on the spot, or you make a player or athlete do a specific this on the spot, and that comes from no scientific background whatsoever. It comes from you want to prevail or give a feeling over to that guy that we are on the right track, or we are doing the right thing for where you are at the moment.
This thought came to mind, and it's something one of my lecturers mentioned. She termed it the golden thread. And to me, what you're referring to in terms of having that feeling, that intuition, it goes beyond the science, it goes beyond the principle, because as a practitioner, again, there is a lot of variables that you need to manage in order for you to be present and cognizant of the best way to approach a client or a team if it's performance involvement as opposed to rehab involvement, which I find it's a special skill because there's a lot of balls and variables that are being juggled. Perhaps to flip the coin, right? So we've had one foot in the water talking about your experiences working behind the scenes in coaching, performance, return to play. But you don't just coach it, you live it too, right? You're fairly active, you're on the grind, and you train like a competitor and you push like a pro. In your own endeavors, is there something that you're perhaps, I want to say, still chasing, either in your own body or in your mind, or goals that you're trying to achieve?
Yeah, definitely. I think the last 2 years, obviously, you get older, and I don't actually want to use the word get older, but you you almost you get into a space where I think you have a little bit more free time, and health becomes a priority, especially for your future. And then at the same time, you, like I mentioned before when we started, I'm super competitive, so I get motivated by it. So to be put into a competitive environment is where I thrive mentally and physically, and it makes training really hard for something a bit more easier and more motivated. But it definitely comes from a place where I like to push the limits and see what I'm still capable of in different things. Even if it's just playing touches in the weeks with the boys, and going running with other friends, and swimming, and doing high rocks, for instance. It really pushes me, and I think I constantly also learn and feel what some of my clients and patients go through, because in that I also get a stiff Achilles, I also get a stiff knee, my back is sore or stiff, and then all of a sudden you've helped people with this, and you have to apply it to yourself, and then you do, and you see, okay, it works, and I feel better, and I think that makes you again believe in your systems and your products that you're selling to the people to help them. So I think it all, and again, it keeps me understanding what people go through. Like I've probably torn my one calf. I can't even count on my hands how many times I've torn it. So you ask the questions, it's like, you've helped many people with something like this. Your main goal is to fix it and make sure it doesn't happen again. Why the hell can't you help yourself? Why what are you doing wrong? Are you training too hard? Are you doing too much? Is it age? Am I doing too much for for the age I'm in. So you're obviously asking all these questions, and you're also trying to figure out. So it's a personal learning curve that you also go through, and again, then you learn, you realize this is the problem. This is how I fixed it. How can I make sure I don't do the same with the clients and the athletes that I'm seeing, that I'm also not making the same mistakes with them. So I think part of the training and doing everything else, it's still a learning school for me.
I think it's special because it comes back to curiosity and also ties into intuition, and being able to have lived experience, but also, again, looking at personal wellness and well-being, which is very important in terms of looking after your own health.
Yeah, I think this is we're in a stage in the world where there's a lot of gimmicks and a lot of stuff out there that's sometimes, most often, just nonsense. But I think I work with so many different individuals with different fitness and health backgrounds and different levels of of professionalism in their own life, from people, CEOs of really big companies, to professional athletes, to much older people, for instance. And everyone is in different stages of their lives. Everyone is in different fitness places in their life. But one common goal is definitely health, and feeling healthy and feeling strong, and not just physical, but definitely mental as well. And I think for a lot of people, they almost feel like it's too late to get some of this health benefits, because they've worked for their whole life very hard, and finally they have the time to get this. And obviously for a lot of them, it's very hard to get something like this. It doesn't come as easy as it should have come 10, 20 years ago. And for me, I don't necessarily want to make the same mistakes. I'm in a perfect environment where I shouldn't make this mistake, for instance. And again, you want to be example for people. You want to make sure that when you're a certain age, that I can still perform on a pretty big level. So, and it starts now. So it also comes from that motivation, that you want to be as strong and as fit as you really can for your age, and even better if it's possible. Again, it comes down to time and money most of the time, and that is not as easy as it's not so easy for everyone, because everyone has life and children and being a wife and being a dad and being a CEO of a big company. So it's not as easy as it comes from me, or for instance for you, or for the other guy. But there is definitely ways where you can get this, and again, is to make it a priority. I think it's definitely so. That's one thing. If I have to touch back to the question you've asked, is for the last 2 years, I definitely made a priority for myself to be better health wise, because that's what I'm selling as well. Yes, I'm selling high performance exercises. Yes, I'm selling rehab, but the product that the specific client is taking off the shelf when they coming to see me is an end product of being pain free, being healthy, being stronger, being more cardiovascular fit. That's the product I'm selling. I'm not selling exercises. I'm not selling rehab protocols. I'm selling an end product of health. And I need to understand that world.
And that takes a good understanding and lived experience, as you say, because at the end of the day, you need to be able to see the bigger picture. I'd like
Yeah.
to jump into, right, so I've been doing this new thing for this season of episodes, and I've titled it the Brew Break. Okay, so
Okay.
essentially we've got 4 rapid fire questions, and it's just one-worded answers or whatever comes to your mind first. But it's just
Okay.
something that meant to be light and fun. Okay, so first question: go to training fuel or slash and guilty snack.
Training field.
But what is it?
So like the gym, the track, touchies.
Oh no, I'm saying fuel like eating. What are we eating? Training fuel.
Training fuel. I thought you said training field.
No. Fuel.
Sorry.
All good, all good.
No, definitely dirty snack.
Okay.
Can't it be both? Can't I do both? Like
You can do both.
it's a dirty snack for training.
Okay. But then you also have to share what it is.
Pizza, definitely pizza.
Okay.
Balboa's Pizzas is it's the best pizza in Stellenbosch. Hopefully, I get some credits from them, but yeah, pizza is just it has everything: protein, carbs, tastes. It has everything.
One athlete you'd love to build a performance plan for.
Sure, there's loads coming to my mind.
First one, any sport.
Probably Usain Bolt or Michael Phelps.
Choo. All right, all right. Next
Yeah,
question.
one of those. I think they're anomalies in their own worlds, and both are individual sports or individual athletes. Sorry. Yeah, I think if we can go back before whatever they've accomplished, yeah, I think that would have been awesome.
High rocks. Love it or just secretly trying to win it?
I think both. I think it's a very good concept if you really think about it. I wish I had the time with those guys in the top 10 or even the top 5 where they basically do it full time to really train for something like this and really give it a go. So definitely both. Both of the questions, I'm definitely trying to do both, but I'm also realistic with time that I do have. So also just trying to have fun
Yeah.
and enjoy the thing. Again, it's competitive, it's hard, it tests so many different skills and things. So you get this really good environment where everything can be tested from mentality to how fit and how strong you are. So yeah, and I think they really have a good. I know there's a super craze and everyone wants to do it and it's nice, it's fun and stuff. But I think if the guy that invented it has something definitely really going through it, I think it's something that's going to be in the Olympics. I don't know exactly when, but I definitely do. It's going to be there because there's a lot of people out there with really good talents in either strength or fitness or yeah, just complex type of movements, but they're not necessarily your best jumper or your best swimmer or your best javelin thrower. That's like super skilled type of sports. But so it's just a sport that's opening up for a lot of new athletes out there. I think it's something that a lot of people were looking for in their life. That's super competitive. So yeah.
And my last one, if you weren't in sports performance, what would you be doing?
Do I have to make money?
Can be anything. Anything.
Uh, I will probably be a surfer.
That's
I'll
a good one.
probably be a surfer somewhere in Bali.
Living
Hopefully,
life.
surfing good enough to make money off the surfing as well. But yeah, probably a surfer.
And then I have two more questions as we begin to wrap up. And I mean, we've spoken about a lot. We've looked at your journey in performance and your space within performance at the Blue Bulls, and then a little bit behind the science and your personal doing. But I'd really like to end off just looking at you, Armand de Wet, and the legacy that you're currently building in Stellenbosch at Elite Performance Sports. And essentially within your private practice, as you said, you rebuild people for a living, whether that be for longevity or for health. But when you think of your own legacy, what do you want the athletes who pass through your hands to remember most?
Yeah, it's definitely it's a very good question. It's something that I've been starting to think about. I think everyone in a professional setup somewhere starts to ask these questions themselves. Obviously, I have a load of children, load of athletes, different people with injuries that come through my doors, and I help them. And then you think, okay, in 30 years from now, where is this people going to be, and what are they going to do? And then you think, what did you teach them? Not necessarily about their injury or about their sport, but I think a lot of people come and train to have a good connection with me and in a good, almost, I can almost put it like a good community that I've created. And hopefully people, when I'm not here one day anymore and they still here, some of the true school children and wherever they are in their life can remember some good times we had in the gym and trained hard and had fun and made them faster and helped them with their injuries and hopefully they can have a few stories that they can tell their children and help other people with some similar issues or back pain or injuries that they've struggled with. And so I think one thing that I definitely love to do is to educate people to make them understand that where rehab and high performance is constantly moving towards, especially these people that are interested, because there's a lot of people that do ask questions and I want to understand why. And so, yeah, it's definitely to educate people because they're not going to be with me always. They may be moving somewhere, or some of the school children will end up somewhere, and hopefully you've taught them something that they can apply for the rest of their life. Because I think all of us have learned something from someone. And again, I think some of the words you used in the beginning is to rebuild people. I like to treat anyone who is anyone, even if it's someone who's 70 years old, as an athlete in his sense. So to improve their quality of life and to improve their athletic ability is to make them wherever they find themselves and better athletes so they can enjoy life outside of the gym and have fun and be confident.
Mm.
Um, so I think, yeah, that's one of my main purposes I feel I give people is to, yeah, is to give them a better quality of life.
I find it special within the space that you're in and the community that you're currently building through elite performance sport is that at the end of the day, it's you're in the people business in
Mm.
the sense that you're working with people hands on, and that's why I wanted to tap into the points around the psychological journey. Just not
mm,
just the science or the principle, but actually tapping into understanding the effect that you as Armand have on those that are around you. And
mm.
perhaps to look a little bit deeper into that answer in terms of, you mentioned the purpose that you believe you have for those that, share that journey with you. But when the gym is quiet, the data is closed, there's no metrics, there's no noise.
Mm.
What is your why? What keeps Armand de Wet coming back, evolving, pushing, and showing up again the next day? What is your why?
I think definitely a big why for me is if again I've thought about this a few times. It's like, is it the difference I make in someone who's injured, or is it the difference in someone's life that I can make them faster? And I hear they've broken their PB, or they've done that better because they've been training with me. So you ask these questions: is it that's motivating you? Is it the sense of you growing a business, and you're motivated by the growth and the people and the systems and the protocols and all the cool apps and videos and everything you're putting into place? Is it like you're falling in love with the process? But I think one definitely big thing is meeting new people and understanding everyone in their own world, and teaching them something about exercise and health that they didn't necessarily know. So for me, I think it's definitely the feeling of teaching someone something. And again, sometimes it's not even anything to do with exercise or rehab. It's just a life lesson that I've learned that I can teach them, and vice versa. I've had a lot of people here that have taught me something. So it almost comes down again to the beginning of the first question you ask. It's that ability to be open to learn. We all here on this planet, and I think it's a privilege to meet different people and to, like you said, I'm in the business of people, so I have the space, I have the environment of meeting people on different occasions for the next year or so, and building a relationship with someone and learning something from that person. There's definitely something that I've learned from every person that's been here. So that's kind of exciting. And sometimes I forget about it. Sometimes you pitch up at work and you just in the same roller coaster, the same track, one set mind thing of today is this, today is that. But the last few months, I think that's definitely something that I've learned from people. Mm.
I find it special. It's again, it comes back to community, and that's what I take away when you're referring to your why. It's community and looking at community upliftment, because through educating, you're able to uplift those that you work with in your practice. As we wrap up and close, I'd like to ask: is there any final thoughts or something that you'd like to share with those that are listening that perhaps we didn't touch on, or something that you just feel that's on your heart that you think you'd like to leave the audience with?
Yeah, I think exactly what you just ended off now. I've spoken to Simon also about this, and I've seen it in myself with my whole fitness journey and training and health journey I've went through, and you can see it in the world of health and fitness, and it's definitely the biggest thing that you need to create is the community. It's people like to do good things together because it's good for the other person, it's good for me. Except of it's not so fun to go and train on your own really hard and eat healthy on your own very hard. But if you do it with friends or with a community, and you share how healthy you are eating and how hard you are training, it has a completely different impact and purpose compared to if you just do it alone. And I think that motivates a lot of people. And you can definitely see people that is using this as a business model gets the biggest success as well. Is where they create this as a community model. For instance, I think that's why a lot of CrossFit gyms are doing great, and they will always do great. And there's loads of gyms that's, for instance, if you take Stellenbosch, it's an anomaly, but there's probably 20 gyms in this town. There's probably 5 to 10 Pilates studios. There's probably 5 yoga studios. There's probably another 5 boot camp / circuit type of training places. And all of them are doing exceptionally well and having great fun. And it's just that community, I think, that everyone is creating. People like to do things together. And I think everyone, especially in the time we find ourselves, being healthy and looking good and eating good is the new fashion. It's the new trend at the moment. And I think it's going to get even better, and it's something, I don't know exactly what it's going to grow in, but the health and fitness sector is definitely going in a massive upward spiral, and there's a lot of things that go with it. If you take, for instance, different companies who's creating clothes and socks, and compared or combined with health and fitness, is it's a massive sector at the moment, and I would almost say it's a trend. But that's the new age we're in. People go and train together instead of going out and drinking together, for instance. That's the new thing happening. So yeah.
As I wrap up, I'd just like to say thank you, Armand, for coming on to Ballers Brew. I really appreciate your time and being open to sharing a little bit about your story, about your background and your why, and also the educational insight into working within a performance world, whether it be institutional or within a private practice setup. And for those that are listening, as we close, it's truly been an exciting and engaging episode, just tapping into the world of performance and understanding how important structure and principle is to drive results, but also to understand that behind science, there's also a little bit of psychology in terms of the way in which you engage with those within your community in order to establish a culture, so to speak, in where you're able to drive results, but also create a community in which you can uplift, inspire, and grow those around you. So that is it for me. And for those that are still listening all the way to the end, I appreciate your time, and I promise that there are many more insightful and engaging episodes to come. This is Michael Bromfield and Ballers Brew signing out.